When tragedy finds comedy, comedy becomes the tragedy. While that was a line I wrote at 9:40 a.m. in my writing and film class, and I wouldn't exactly say I know what it entirely means, I would say it applies quite well to Jordan Peele's Get Out, especially when considering Rod, front and comedic relief to the main character Chris, and the final scene of the movie. This video will contain major spoilers about the movie, as well as overanalyze the ending scene. Following the suicide of Walter, a past victim of the Armitage's body snatching, Chris, relieved and exhausted after his escape, relaxes his head down on the road to rest. This relief is short-lived, however, when he sees Rose, his betrayer girlfriend, still alive after being fatally shot in the gut by Walter, weakly clamoring for the rifle. She gets her hand on it, but Chris, not weakened by a gunshot straight to the gut, easily takes the rifle away. Standing above Rose, Chris prepares to finish her, while she tries to manipulate him and his feelings by acting innocent, saying,
Chris, I'm so sorry. It's me. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Despite this moving declaration of love, Chris starts strangling her. However, as he attempts to, she smiles. Now, besides being incredibly off-putting, it also gets Chris to stop. Why she smiled isn't exactly clear. She could have known that Chris didn't have it in him to kill her, or maybe was just trying to say, "You're just like us." But regardless, Chris gives up and releases his grip. A couple of seconds later, we hear the sound of a car pulling up, and off of Rose's face we see a flashing reflection of blue and red lights, and hear this. Chris gets off the ground, exhausted, and puts his hands in the air, ready to be arrested. But as the camera moves past him and the car door opens, we see our hero in his TSA-approved car, Rod. Following this, Chris hops in the TSA mobile, and I'll let the rest play out.
Chris! I mean, I told you not to go in that house. How you find me? I'm TS motherfucking A. We handle shit. That's what we do. Consider this situation fucking handle.
Now, after that long-winded description of the scene, you may be asking yourself what the heck all of this is about. Well, as I mentioned earlier, when tragedy finds comedy, comedy becomes the tragedy. Again, not exactly the most clear form of chiasmus. If you don't know what chiasmus is, unfortunately it is not the name of a wizard. Rather, it is a reversal of words to create successive phrases or clauses. One good example of this is from Frederick Douglass. You have seen how a man was made a slave. You shall see how a slave was made a man. This reversal both causes us to see the two ideas as connected but distinct, and adds weight to the statement. Between tragedy, comedy, and Get Out, the relationship between Rod and Peele's directorial intentions parallel that reversal, using Hitchcock's views on tension relating to movies. I take a dramatic situation up and up and up to its peak of excitement, and then, before it has time to start the downward curve, I introduce comedy to relieve the tension. After that, I feel safe with the climax. When we are first introduced to Rod, played by Lil Rel Howery, when we are first introduced to Rod, played by Lil Rel Howery, we are introduced to him as a comedic relief character. A wisecracking, caring, but slightly loud friend to Chris, who takes his TSA job seriously. At one point, telling Chris not to go to the house while also saying,
You know I'm mad at you because you never take my advice.
Like what?
Like don't go to a white girl parent's house.
She doing licking your balls or something?
Yeah, bye.
although many of these lines were ad-libbed by Howery, often a comedic actor, when you take into account the amount of work and investigating his character does throughout the movie, as well as being the hero to save Chris, it starts to seem like his character might not just be the funny guy. This is where my example of chiasmus comes into play. Comedy, aka Rod, encounters tragedy, the hypocritical and racist mentalities of many woke people. In this case, exaggerated to the point where the acceptance of black people has become the coveting of black people. The Armitages and their associates glorify the bodies of black people to the point of turning right back to the possession of them, this time literally. Instead of owning the person, they steal the body and the mind. As Peele says in an interview with Vanity Fair regarding different fan theories, when all of the guests show up in black cars, it was intentional.
And all the guests arrived in black cars. Nothing was by accident. There you go. That's right. They all arrived in black cars. Like the black bodies are going to ride away in.
This treatment of black people as less than people but slightly more than objects, the black cars, is a sort of liberal slavery, or at least the suppression of black people while presenting itself as woke. No wonder the featured song of the movie is Redbone by Childish Gambino. And so what does one do to portray tragedy in a softer and more palatable way to the public? They use comedy. Using comedy, tragedy is easily understandable, comedy acting as a sort of protective sunglasses, so to speak. Looking straight at the sun is painful, but by using sunglasses, you're better able to handle looking at the sun. Both cases are still painful. Usually looking at tragedies and a giant glowing ball of gas is, but with comedy it allows people to have the open mind to see. And that's what I find so great about Rod. He's a character that breaks the funny guy trope, and is able to get past the ignorance of the audience, and instead uses that humor to become a hero to Chris in the movie, and to shine a light on issues often ignored. The final scene of Jordan Peele's Get Out follows Hitchcock's ideas on tension and comedy, by both subverting the expectations of common tropes, as well as allowing the audience to digest and see through the eyes of a black director the social implications made throughout the movie. Following a tense and climactic fight, the one to step up is none other than one of the characters that are most often left to inaction in movies. And to release and reveal the tension built up throughout the movie, Rod is still the comedic relief, but used in a way that subverts the archetype. But ultimately, by using comedy, Peele and Rod enable the era audience to see the tragedy, and by seeing the tragedy, the audience can find and understand the comedy. How's that for chiasmus? Still sounds like a wizard.